John Roberto is the first speaker. Please welcome him.
Good morning. You can hear me okay? Good. It's a pleasure to be here. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but it is a pleasure to be here. One word before we begin, just so you can kind of put me in context a little bit. I spent my whole life in church ministry, in faith formation. Like many people in the room, I started in youth ministry back when the dinosaurs walked the earth. You got to spend at least 15 minutes in youth ministry before you can do anything else in church ministry. I spent decades. But over the 40-something years in faith formation, I've watched different eras of faith formation move as I've grown into really embracing kind of a more lifelong faith formation approach. So what I want to share this morning is how we might begin to reimagine, reinvent faith formation, but for the 21st century. Now, I grew up way back there in the 20th century. And so we're talking about how do we do this in the 21st century. So as you approach it, you might be a little incredulous that a 64-year-old is talking about some of these things, but bear with me, because that means all of you can talk about these things as well. You're not going to keep up with me if you're trying to take notes. Okay, that's just not possible. So you can download the PowerPoints from lifelongfaith.com. That's my website. Just go to presentations. It's the first one there. You can't miss it. It says Luther Seminary. And you'll have the ability to kind of download it. It's in PDF and as well as PowerPoint. And there's lots of links that I'm going to share with you that are on that page. So that's the easiest place to keep up. I'm Italian on both sides. You don't have a chance of keeping up with me. And I'm from Connecticut in the Northeast. No chance. Okay. I'm going to start with a quote from Seth Godin. I'm going to end with a quote. I think he's one of the wise people, and every day you can get a little bit of his wisdom via his blog. He wrote this just a couple of weeks back. He says, "How do I get rid of the fear that's been kind of hovering here? Change, transformation, there's always a little bit of fear underneath this. Well, I have to change." Alas, he says, this is the wrong question. The only way to get rid of the fear is to stop doing things that might not work, to stop putting yourself out there, to stop doing work that matters. No, the right question, he says, is how do I dance with the fear? Fear is not the enemy, paralysis is. He's not writing about the church, but he could be. I want to do a couple of these adaptive challenges, things that are happening, things that you know about, because this context is the context in which we all live and work, and the context that we struggle with oftentimes as we try to do faith formation across the whole lifespan. And just briefly, to just summarize a couple. What's happening is our people have changed dramatically. Over the last decade and a half, there's been dramatic change, and many sociologists say that since 2000, there's been more cultural, social, generational change than there was in the prior 100 years. And you see this no matter how small or big or wherever your congregation is, you have lifespan diversity. We're not talking about 10 decades of life. Generational diversity. The typical mainline Roman Catholic Orthodox congregation has 4 or 5 generations. And so we have generational diversity, each with their own outlooks, perspectives, values, attitudes, ways of talking, use of technology. We have family diversity. We can count at least 10 different kindred family forms, let alone all the non-kindred family forms. And they're all in our neighborhood, and they surround us. And religious and spiritual diversity. From the actively engaged, faith center of their life, church, the most important thing in their life, to not affiliated, to the spiritual but not religious, and to the occasionals in the middle who visit us on a somewhat regular basis. We have all this diversity. And so our people are changing, but our society is changing. We face the adaptive challenge that we're moving from the group-centered society, which just describes the world I grew up in the 1950s in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in an Italian household where Grandma and Grandpa lived on the 3rd floor. And everybody in the neighborhood was Italian. The parish I went to, Holy Rosary Catholic Parish, everybody was Italian. There were only 6 last names in the whole parish. There was, now you could put Swedish, you're just fill in the blank, okay? There was no escaping becoming a Catholic, because it was the air you breathed. It was the walls of your house. It was the little shrine and the pictures of saints in my grandmother's house when we visited her every Sunday. And in that group center world, there was a mutually reinforcing ecology of faith that produced believers practicing their faith, living their faith at home, at church, in the world. But we got that for free. As long as grandma and grandpa were there, as long as ethnicity passed down the traditions, we got that for free. This is 2014. It's not free any longer. Because society has moved from this group-centered world, and there's still pockets all around the country, to a network-centered life, which is a horizontal life. It's what your Facebook page looks like if you graphed it, of all the groups that you are connected with that know no geography, time, or space. When I was growing up, if you asked me how big my social network was, of course I wouldn't have been able to even know what you were talking about. But if you went back to from 2014 back to 1950, I would have said my social network was as far as I could walk from my house. 4 blocks to the playground, 6 blocks to the park, and everybody in between who all knew us because we were the neighborhood kids. In 2014, that happens in physical and virtual settings, but it knows no geography, time, or space. And we live in a network world, networked relationships. That's the image that guides our social life. We also face tremendous adaptive challenges as education in the United States, Canada, Western Europe, tries to catch up to the revolution that's already happening. And that is we're shifting from education to learning. And that learning happens anytime, any place, anywhere. And so now what used to be done in schools by privileged people is now done anywhere, any place. If you've got a mobile device, you can do a PhD. From a shift from consumption of information, sitting in desks, relatively quiet, textbooks open, teacher lecturing, to participatory learning, engagement, the whole revolution in maker education, making things, developing things, engaged, project-centered, all the names of which that learning takes place. And a shift from institutions like seminaries and colleges and universities and schools, which were the providers of education, now to networks where education and learning and resources are distributed widely. That no matter where you are on the planet, if you have a mobile device, you can learn and access information instantly. But we also have adaptive abundance. We have adaptive challenges, and churches like schools change very slowly, but the world changes very quickly. We have adaptive abundance. We have this just out of nowhere abundance of digital content, digital tools, digital resources, digital technologies. In 2005, you couldn't put that slide up there. That's how dramatically in the last decade it's changed. So when you want to learn the Bible, the question not is, where can I find that? The question is, which one of these great sources should I select? For all of you who have been on Enter the Bible, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have adaptive abundance in mobile technologies. Computers were good. I learned on a big desktop. Remember desktops? They make very nice planters when you turn them on their side, by the way. You put plants in them, they look great. They're beige, they kind of fit right into the house. Everything's mobile. Since 2007 and the revolution in mobile technology, everything is mobile, except probably congregational faith formation. Doesn't have to be, though. Okay. Everything is mobile. And so the question is no longer, how do we get people to be with us so we can do faith formation? The question is, how can we be with people wherever they are so we can do faith formation with them? I mean, the question has to be, mom who is waiting at soccer practice or camp today, or dad who's at baseball practice waiting for his son or daughter, what's on their phone? And why isn't it us? Now, 7 or 8 years ago, well, before '07, you would have thought I was nuts if I said that to you. But since the iPhone and the whole revolution that mobile technology has brought, we can be wherever people are. There simply is no more need for geography in faith formation, nor time in faith formation. Every congregation here can be everywhere and someplace all at the same time. And adaptive abundance. Aren't you amazed when you go online at all the free, high-quality digital content, and now religious digital content? My slide is Vibrant Faith at Home, a little partial. I work part-time with Vibrant Faith Ministries right here in the Twin Cities. This is 800 faith-forming activities for free across the whole life cycle. That's just one little example of what is dozens and dozens and hundreds of wonderful digital content available to us in ways we never imagined. Remember the days when you had to buy a curriculum in order to do faith formation? That once you bought the curriculum, you got the program, you got the schedule, and you were done. Now, where do you want to go? How do you want to learn? Where do you want to learn? It's all possible. So, how do we reimagine faith formation for the 21st century? I mean, he did it in the first century. Paul did it in the later half of the first century. We've done that all the way through history. Luther did it. I mean, Luther looked at the printing press, courtesy of Gutenberg, and must have said to himself, I've got big plans for you. No printing press, how much would the Reformation have been diffused? No printing press, no Bible in everyone's home. No printing press, just an angry Catholic monk in a little town in Germany. Printing press, diffusion. So the technology is an assister, an enabler, a catalyst. Buckminster Fuller once said, you never change things by fighting existing reality. So I'm not going to tell you to stop doing things, but it's going to be obvious what you need to stop doing. But to change something, build a new model, and makes the old one obsolete. That's what we're in the midst of as congregations. That's what education's in the midst of. We're moving from 19th and 20th century models of education that we still keep reviving. They're on CP, they're in the intensive care unit, they're on oxygen, but we keep on trying to keep them reinvigorated. It's the new resource that comes across. It's the new Sunday school curriculum. But we know down deep, we got to change the model because it just won't carry the responsibility for faith formation in the 21st century. I think faith formation needs to be life-wide and lifelong, not just in theory, because we all agree with that, but in practice. And so we now have 10 decades of life. I have congregations all the time say, pick the decades you work with. And then we bring a therapist in to help them. Because out of these 10 decades of life, we probably invest 90% of our resources and assets in 10 years. And you know the 10 years I'm talking about. But everybody here knows faith formation is life. But that's not a possibility in the 19th and 20th century models because they didn't grow up in a world in which lifelong was a possibility and people lived for 10 decades. And life-wide. There's no part of a person's life that's not our concern in faith formation. And so we're concerned about the entire person, holistic and comprehensive. That's so hard to do because what do you have, an hour or two with people every week? On a good week? And as long as between October 1st and whatever Easter falls? Some of you are old enough to have been in church ministry long enough to remember when the program year was September to June. Now it's October to whatever Easter is, and just pray it's not March 23rd. Isn't it true? And so we're confronted with, we want to care about the entire person, their life issues, their developmental tasks, their struggles, their joys, all of it is the purview of faith formation. But in 1 or 2 hours a week, The models won't let us do that, and we know that's what we need to do. And we also need to change some of our style, that we keep on going from faith, our tradition, our beliefs, to life. And that's the prayer, that it may make it from faith to life. When in fact, start with life, move to faith, move back to life, move back to faith in that process. We always start with the person. The person is the center of all faith formation. And we move from that person to our tradition, and we move back to faith, life, and we move back to faith in that ever-circling process. It's intergenerational and generational. We've come out of an era, the last 50 or 60 years, where everything has been sliced and diced into grade levels for as long as the grade levels last. And in a world in which we lived intergenerationally, that was not a problem. But in a world in which churches are about the only place left where 3 or 4 generations gather to do something intentional every week, churches and synagogues and mosques, we have to be far more intergenerational in community, in learning, in rituals, in worship, because religious transmission is happening across generations, always has, always will. A wonderful book I'll commend to you. I can recommend a bunch, but it's Vern Bengtson's brand new book, Families in Faith. It's been out probably about a year. And it's his 40-year study of the same families looking at intergenerational religious transmission. It is the most solid research case for why intergenerationality has to be the centerpiece of all faith formation. But that's not in opposition to generational. Things that we do with children, teens, young adults, middle adults, older adults, old adults. So it's both intergenerational and generational. And we can do all these things. The gift of having a congregation is that we gather intergenerationally. We need to play to that strength. And it's missional. Faith formation used to be what we do on campus. Faith formation has to happen in the world as well as on campus. How do we go out and reach the diversity of people's needs? It's networked. I'll diagram that and show you that. But it's how do we bring together an array of resources, experiences, interactions around people that they can learn and grow in faith with. It's connected and it's blended. For those who have ever been to the Khan Academy, you get kind of a twofer. Not only do you get connected education, but you get this, oh my God, there's 6,000 videos, 15 million children on there every day, learning and growing in this online center that's connected, but it's not in opposition to gather. He talks a lot about how to flip the classroom. I'll share a model with you in a few minutes. And it's personalized. In the digital world, what's really easy to do, that's really hard in our bricks and mortar world, is to personalize and customize faith formation around people. When you have religious and spiritual diversity, when you have a diversity of needs, how do you personalize and customize it around the people? It's not people fitting into our curriculum, it's people becoming the curriculum and us building networks around them. And then lastly, it's curation. Most of us grew up in a world where you had to create the content, design the programming. In a world of abundance, you curate it. You select the very best resources to match what the needs people have. When you have abundance of resources, we become curators and then selective creators of religious content and experiences. Okay. That's the 30,000, 20,000 foot level. Let's get down to the grassroots. What I'm talking about is a new faith formation operating system. And the reason why I talk about it that way is most of us are almost unaware of the operating system on your computer or phone. Whether it's OS 10, whether it's Windows 8.1, whether it's iOS 7 on its way to 8, whether it's the Android, it just allows us to do things. And so the image here is the operating system of faith formation, the way in which we organize it, the scaffolding, the architecture, if you will, allows us to layer apps, content experiences, onto that. That's the image I'd like you to take with you today. We've got to change the operating system so that we can load on those apps like you have on your phones and iPads and tablets that allow us to do faith formation, to learn and grow, and to interact. The operating system is kind of transparent. It allows us to do the kinds of interactions and experiences and to access all those apps, many of which we never use, but are on that platform. When I talk about a network, I'm talking about putting the person at the center, whether it's an age group, whether it's intergenerational or family, and asking how can we assemble an array of resources around those people to help them learn and grow in faith. In an age of scarcity, a network would not have been possible. But in an age of abundance, we can bring small group and large group programs, at-home programs, community events and programs, online resources, digital content. We can bring all of that to bear on our people. And even if you were a tiny congregation of 100 members, you can do this because size doesn't make any difference anymore. You have access to exactly the same content. And in the smaller scale, you have as much diversity as the big congregations do. Easier to personalize and customize faith formation in a smaller congregation, but still have access to the same resources. So, a network programming, a variety of diverse faith formation experiences, programs, activity, and resources that we curate so our people get the very, very best stuff in our tradition. Multiple ways to learn and grow. It's online and it's physical. This is a both-and world. Don't pull it apart. The online, virtual, and the gathered physical is all faith formation. It's just broadening our settings. And it's mobile. So I'll give you an example. This example, in fact. So I built a website, some website models to explain. I'll show you in a minute one of the people who came to one of the training programs I did who went back home and just developed this wonderful platform. So here's Holy Trinity Families, where I am the mythical pastor. I have to understand, as a Roman Catholic married with grandkids, the impossibility of that statement. But Holy Trinity Families, the website cost me nothing to build. I built it on a Weebly.com platform, cost you $8 a month, 2 lattes at Starbucks or Haribo. So it's not about money. These little menus across the top, way back here in my PowerPoint, is what this looks like. I try to aggregate around people. Let's get a little bigger. I try to aggregate around people a variety of experiences and content appropriate to this stage of life, which is families with children. If we took families from baptism, hopefully walking with mentors who we already have in our congregation, they're called baby boomers, their grandparents whose grandkids aren't next door, and we made available to them anytime, anywhere resources. They could use at home, they could use on their phone, they can come to church for. We just opened the possibilities and said, the question is not whether you want to participate in faith formation, the question is how do you want to participate, for what, and how long. We are here to be your resource. Our question for our members of our congregation of any age ought to be, how can we equip you? Not how can you come to us. They will come to you. That's going to be an inevitable outcome if you equip people. And so online, we're simply building a platform for them to be able to access great content, interact with each other. We can wrap social media like Facebook or like the example of the table right around this so they can communicate with each other. But this becomes the heart of the network because this is where the content and the experiences are found. This is where they will come. This is where they will draw from, and then we'll use social media to help them to interact around that. So it's not whether you have a website or social media, it's both. It's always going to be both. So here I built just a page just for families. So you're going to like my church, by the way, so sign up, because this is a great parish, all right? I say that, but actually I had somebody actually register for one of these seminars. You know, they sent the registration form in. I didn't have the heart to write back and say, this is my mythical parish. So I'm doing a First Wednesday's Parent Webinar Series. I'm simply tired of trying to draw parents out. We expect the most from the busiest people in the galaxy. Parents with children. No one's busier. If you want to draw people out 3 nights a week, get 64-year-olds out. They're sitting home going, yeah, my grandkids don't live next to me anymore. But you can't get the busiest people in the galaxy to come out, and it costs them a fortune. Babysitting's up to $30 an hour. So turn it around. So this allows us to do something that we want to do in a physical place. You can't do it there. We'll do it in a virtual space. So we'll do our first Wednesday's webinar series. We're going to bring the best people on parenting to our parents. Stay home, put your feet up, have a beer, have a Cabernet Sauvignon, relax, talk to your spouse, and watch the webinar. And chat with us and ask us a question. And the presenter can be from anywhere, as long as they tune in at 9 o'clock, whatever time zone you're in. So we're doing 4 of those in my church. First Wednesdays, we bring the program to you. And then because I want them to learn more about that, I've aggregated some really great content. All of that content in the bottom is from exactly the same church website. Same website, rather, not church website. It's from Parent Further from the Search Institute. So when you click on these, I won't do it right now, when you click on those, you'll go to a page on their site that has just that content on it. I don't have time to create that content. You don't have time to create the content. I'm not an expert on this. But the people who wrote the content for Parent Further at the Search Institute, they are. So I'm going to curate that content. So I'm going to create the webinar and curate the presenters. I'm going to curate the content for people here. Then we're going to offer people a small group study. We're going to use Bruce Feiler's wonderful book, The Secrets of Happy Families. If you've never read it, it's a wonderful book. He's a great writer. I have a little TED Talk that I embedded there to get them excited about this. And they can sign up. So they can join a study group at church. And those who are most comfortable at church might do that. So who's going to do that? The more actively engaged, the more active members, great. You can host a study group. You don't like any of the times I picked, because I picked the following, well, I don't have it live, but I picked a variety of times. You can host one in your house and we'll bring the content to you. It's all online. Or if you're really busy, you're flying around the country, we'll host a group on a couple of different times in a Google Plus Hangout, and that technology is also free. The question isn't whether I should come to church for it. The question is whether I should participate in the book group, and we'll help you with the how. And I put some other content. I put a webinar that Gene Roca-Partain did at Search. I put some information from Boys Town and their hotline for parents. 24 hours a day, one of the Boys Town therapists is online for any parent to ask a question or to get help. I do the same thing for adults. I've aggregated content. Again, these are my circles of networking. This is my fall season. And if you were at my Holy Trinity Church, we're going to do spiritual enrichment. I'll pick that one. I got lots of categories. This is actually not a Catholic one. I actually changed this a bit. So it's a spiritual practices course. It's going to be 5 sessions in our church. 5 sessions, 7 to 9 in our prayer room. You can register right online for the course. That'll print out as an Excel spreadsheet. Makes my life easy. This is the book we're going to use. We're going to use Sacred Rhythms by Haley Barton. Wonderful book. I put some content on there. They can register online. If you miss a session with one of our great presenters, we're recording it. I got the high school kids who are recording it. I don't know how they do it, but they're going to do it. And we'll have that content available to you tomorrow online so you can watch it. So if you can't be there physically, we'll be with you where you are anytime. By the way, you do enough of that, you get this wonderful library that develops. Then we're doing a book group with Richard Rohr, his Falling Upward book. These are adults, so good midlife book. And I put a little video there from YouTube to entice people. And I got a bunch of things because our topic is devotions and prayer practices. I've got some great devotional practices. I've got some great things for prayer. If they want to take a course on their own, I've got some things from Spirituality and Practice, a great website of great content. And if they want to do an online retreat over the course of the year, Creighton University has the Ignition exercises, 12 months, all free. This is possible everywhere. Building networks around people, around things that we want to engage people with, but turning the responsibility over to them to engage with us. Okay, those are simply diagrams of what I just did. So I'm thinking networks. I'm thinking 3 times a year we load up great content. in a 3-season approach. And I like these seasons because September to January 1 gets me Advent, Christmas. January to May gets me Lent and Easter, and then the summertime, and each one of them has its own look and feel, but I'm going to program for 12 months on the network, which you have a hard time doing in physical space, I can do online, at home, at Starbucks or Caribou, on vacation, at a campsite. As long as you have an internet connection or have your phone, we can reach you. You are reachable. Everybody's reachable. And my network can address the diversity of the religious and spiritual needs of people. I can offer things for different people wherever they are in their walk with God. That parent webinar, once that catches on, once I connect people to it, moms at soccer practice are going to recommend other moms take it, because next month is on communicating well. And I'm going to get the not affiliated who are going to participate in that because they want to be better parents. And all of a sudden they're going to realize this is brought to you by Holy Trinity Church. We have planted ourselves out in the community. We want to equip you, whether you're an active member, engaged there every Sunday, or whether you're looking at us going, I'm not sure about you guys. We're here to serve you. I'm going to skip ahead and just do a couple of other examples. I can add to my network what I call connected programming. Anything you do in a physical space can be added to your network. So for example, I'll move to an actual example. Anything we do at church, Sunday, the best thing about Sunday worship, it's an hour. The worst thing about Sunday worship, it's an hour. The best thing about Vacation Bible School, it's a whole week, and you get everybody across the whole religious spiritual spectrum because you're the cheapest babysitting in the galaxy. But the worst thing about Vacation Bible School is that Friday afternoon comes. And then those people make their way back into the shadows until next year's Vacation Bible School. No longer build a network around parents who come to Vacation Bible School. I worked with a church that said it was dying. By the way, dying is a choice, not an inevitability in terms of churches. Now, physically, yeah, we're going to die. But in terms of church, you choose to die. I said, we have a lot of families in the community, they don't come to our church. I said, we'll go to them. I said, take Vacation Bible School. Do Vacation Bible School as a mission outreach. I don't even care what Bible stories you use. Who cares? They're going to come anyway. I don't care which one you buy. It doesn't make any difference. They're going to come. They're going to participate. Just do Vacation Bible School really well. And you're doing it so you can stay in relationship with people for the next 11 months. So everything we do in the church setting, we can connect. And so I work with churches that say, take what you do in church life and ask yourself, how do we want to empower and equip people in their home and daily life? Because you now have all kinds of digital content to surround them with. All kinds of experiences on the network, like that family webinar series I talked about, that you can wrap around them. So use our church experiences. Don't stop doing those things. Do them really, really well. Ask yourself, what do we want people to be able to do at home, and how do we stay connected to them and build a digital faith formation platform, website, to stay connected with them, and then use all your social media outlets to build relationships and connection. There's nothing you do at church that can't be extended into people's daily lives, and you add that to the network. So it's not just VBS, it's VBS plus the follow-up. It's just not, it's like those baptism parents. They're baptized and then they kind of go on sabbatical. They don't have to anymore. You can do ministry in the first 5 years of life if you think about it as a network. That's with them, that's at home, that's selectively at church. Okay. You can also flip the classroom. This is one of the first churches I worked with 4 or 5 years ago, St. Edward the Confessor Church in Dana Point, California, Orange County. And they were having all the usual problems people have with confirmation. They probably had those problems with confirmation 400 years ago too, I don't know. But it's just endemic to confirmation. It's kind of the confirmation problem, okay? Which is nobody wants to come, really, okay? No matter what book resource you use, nobody really. You give out iPads, I hear it increases attendance. So what St. Edward said was, we're going to stop fighting people. And because we now have the Khan Academy as this flagship model of flipped classroom, which is put the content online, what used to be a presentation, put it online, but do in person what you cannot do online, which is practice, perform, engage, mentor, tutor, relational. They changed their confirmation program. They still do retreats. They still do service every month. They still have community gatherings, but monthly. 3 weeks a month, the content's online, behind this window, if you will, on their website. 9th and 10th graders are organized in small groups. They each have a guide, the youth minister who's full-time because it's a huge parish. They have like 400 or 500 kids in confirmation. It's a huge place. It's not a simple undertaking. He's now got time to run small groups, be available one-on-one, meet kids in a Google Plus Hangout, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're now running 95+% attendance every month. It's not a struggle anymore because they are in relationship all month long. All month long. And what they do when people gather is just precious time. Practice performing our faith and our learning, presenting to each other, teaching each other. Nothing engages high school kids more than teaching each other, presenting, performing. They flipped the classroom because now the content's available. It wasn't possible 5 or 6 years ago, but it is possible today. Oh, and don't wait for print publishers to get on board with this. Go beyond that to find the resources. It's all out there. It's amazing what's out there. And now we can personalize it. Personalizing around the people. Our problem is we've been a one-size-fits-all faith formation and a one-size-fits-one world. If we want to help people grow religiously and spiritually, help them mature in faith, that is a walk with people. It isn't a class. It isn't a group. So how do we personalize and customize it? Well, you've seen what I've just done. It's very easy to personalize and customize when you think about a network approach, not just a physical approach to faith formation. Guide people discerning their needs, equip them with the resources that they find on the network, and provide them mentoring and guidance to walk with. Every baptism parent in your church ought to have a grandparent, mentor, guide, support to walk with them in the first 5 years of life. And to give them access to the church, its physical programming and ministries, and to the wonderful resources online. And it's the extension of our church community in the lives of these young families. Same thing can happen in confirmation, same thing can happen all across the lifespan. In my own tradition, we do this in the rite of Christian initiation of adults. In the catechumenal model, people have sponsors, guides, and mentors. For some reason, why haven't we applied it across the whole lifespan? Okay. And last is curation. Okay. And that is, what do you curate? Everything. Physical programs, online stuff, people, like my mentors. I curate all of those. And when you switch from, I got to design, I got to schedule, I got to set up chairs, got to take down chairs, you know what I'm talking about. All the things that go into program management. And you switch to curation, the question is, how do I match resources and people with needs and learning and growth? Many of us have curated in the print world for decades. Now we're going to curate in the digital world. But our new role is not creators of content and programming. It's curating those on behalf of our people. It's the only way to extend our reach. Lifelong and life-wide, intergenerational, generational, networked and missional, connected and blended, personalized and curated. I think that's where we're headed. If this was a 10-chapter book, this would be my first chapter. There's so much more to do as I work with churches, really in across all the Christian denominations at this point, moving towards this huge paradigm shift in the way we think about faith formation. If you want to learn more about it, I've got a website called, appropriately, 21st Century Faith Formation. All the stuff is free on there. No charge or anything. And just Google 21st Century. It's actually 21stcenturyfaithformation.com. So you'll be able to get that pretty easily. So let me close with this quote from Seth Godin. He wrote this the day after Nelson Mandela died. And I thought it was one of the most wonderful tributes to Mandela, because it wasn't about Mandela. It was about what Mandela did to us. And he said, others can write about Nelson Mandela's impact on the world stage and how he stood up for the dignity of all people and how he changed our world. For those that seek to make a change in the world, whether global or local, one lesson of this life is this: you can. You can make a difference. You can stand up to insurmountable forces. You can put up with far more than you think you can. Your lever is far longer than you imagine it is if you choose to use it. And if you don't require the journey to be easy or comfortable or safe, you can change the world. See, I believe that. I believe everything I said this morning is not only doable, it's sitting right there. And I think God is doing something new in our midst, and we need to pay attention. My learning in my 60s are these two things. I need to trust God much more deeply. I need to be confident in that trust in God. Thank you.